But here's an interesting thing. What do you do with North Carolina? So it's being reported. I forget who reported this, that North Carolina.
It was in Ross Dellinger's article at the end where some of the people that he was talking to asked who is going to be the most desirable team to take. And it's not Florida State and Clemson because of the SEC already having a footprint in both those states and the Big Ten
the SEC does not have a footprint in North Carolina.
Well, in just the Carolina region.
Okay.
But the whole point here is that North Carolina provides basketball. It provides far more Olympic sports. So why would you go and add another football blue blood when you really don't need that? You just need a good, well-rounded program.
Basketball blue blood.
Exactly.
The SEC network or SEC has one of their home bases in Charlotte. I do. So let me say this. There are a lot of people questioning why would the SEC put one of their home bases in Charlotte. And this happened, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And I said, are you an idiot? Because they want to be there. They want Tobacco Road. There's a lot of deep pockets and money when you're talking about North Carolina, even Virginia. I do think that the SEC wants to be a part of that. The question becomes with North Carolina, do they leave without Duke? Do they leave and go to another conference without Duke? Because, Joe, it's the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's not even close.
I think what's more realistic, because Duke's a private institution, that if they leave, it's with NC State. Because there's, the state.
You're talking about North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. North Carolina would leave with NC State because of the state politics and the governor's not going to allow for this type of movement without both of them being in better situations.
Well, they did.
I bet he doesn't care about Duke.
Though. They let the move happen in Oklahoma. They was like, screw Oklahoma State. We don't care.
It's a good point. They probably wouldn't have been able to do it. I think it would be more NC State than Duke.
Well, and they let A&M leave and left Texas behind when A&M went to the league 10 years ago. I agree with you. It's all about the eyeballs basketball-wise. I will tell you because, look, I've been in the SEC footprint and covered the SEC more than any other conference. What's funny, Joe, I put this poll out yesterday. Who would you rather, Florida State or Clemson, to be in your conference?
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelmingly, the answer was neither. We want North Carolina. It wasn't even remotely close. I mean, the poll reached over 11,000 people. I put it on Facebook as well. The one on Facebook got 107,000 views. But the one on Facebook, you got people in the comments, Joe, they don't want Florida State nor Clemson. They wanted North Carolina. I think because of the basketball prestige that it brings.
Yeah.
And I don't think that – Florida State would be good, and I think Clemson would be good. But I think not only does the conference probably want both conferences want North Carolina, I really do believe that I think Greg Sankey would go down on the shield and say, Clemson and Florida State, you can go to the Big Ten. We're getting North Carolina. I really do think that he would do that.
So here's my kind of final thought on all this. If we remember when the Pac-12 exploded and everything fell apart.
What, 3 weeks ago?
It was murmurs of the bigger programs seeking refuge in other situations. But the one that started all this was the school that we weren't even talking about. It was Colorado. Colorado was the initiator after USC and UCLA left. They were the initiator in saying, we're going to go back to the Big 12. We're going to make the jump.
You know why?
Because
it saved the – look, I'm going to tell you something. Colorado saved the Big 12. And we had that conversation because if you remember the first 2 weeks when Prime was, obviously they beat TCU, it was the highest view game the first 2 weeks of college football.
Yeah.
It's where Fox went in back-to-back weeks.
But this is my whole point, is that North Carolina isn't going to be the team or the program that's making all these aggressive moves, that's doing all the suing and trying to say that you have no right to enforce this, this penalty.
They just going to move.
once we have clarity on it, I think that North Carolina could be that first one to move. And I think that Ross Dellinger put them and Virginia in there for a reason in this article, because I'm willing to bet that they're probably being the most quietly active in trying to find a new location.
Here's what I'm going to start telling every fan base that watches our show. If your team is in the ACC, Big 12, or was formerly in the PAC, from a fan perspective, there's more trash talk in the SEC and Big 10. Understand what you're coming into. Like, I don't think that North Carolina fully understands what they're coming into if they go to the SEC. I really don't.
I mean, that's a tough tough thing to throw out there.
Let LSU. Hey, listen to me. Let North Carolina come to Baton Rouge and lose. Joe,
I don't disagree. I think that Florida State fans are scrappy, so I'm not worried. I'm not worried about Florida State fans, but North Carolina, man.
No, I'm not going to say the word. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that some of the teams might be fine, but I think you bring up a good point, and I think that you got to be ready to come to fight, because it's not all cupcakes and rainbows in the SEC or the Big Ten.
No, and here's the big thing: they're making this as a basketball move. If they do make this move in the next, and I think he's on retirement watch anyway, you're going to probably be doing it with a new head coach, football-wise. And what I will tell you is, even though you're a basketball school and basketball program, your conference, both conferences that you're going into, they are not. Okay? The bigger thing in all this, we can talk about basketball all the live long day, and that's cute and funny. Oh, basketball, March Madness, fine. You're making your money from football, and you better start putting more resources into it, or you're going to get left behind.
Final little tidbit to throw in here. I think if North Carolina does jump, I think it's the Big Ten, just because of their presence of other sports. They are a university that clearly prides themselves in all the, a lot of different athletic programs that they have. Arguably their best program outside of basketball is lacrosse. There's no representation for the SEC in lacrosse, unless maybe this is a move to say that, like, we've got some good club programs in the SEC.
Started a lacrosse team this year.
Who are they? Do you know?
LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and I think A&M.
Division 1, or is it
Division 3? It's like no, it's not even Division 3. It's like club.
So unless the SEC has an intention to turn those club programs to D1, I would strongly consider those that don't understand that North Carolina takes a lot of pride. Their alumni base takes a ton of pride in their lacrosse program. There's a lot of lacrosse alumni that, go work big bank jobs in all over the East Coast. So that's something to pay attention to.
I'm going to disagree with you. I just don't think that Greg Sankey would sacrifice Florida State and Clemson or anybody else to get North Carolina.
He better start a lacrosse conference.
So if you know what, man, I'm going to tell you something. He would tell him to source that stay in the ACC, go somewhere else, be independent for lacrosse. When you're getting paid $20-25 million, because
I get the money thing is big.
You money. You're going to get $20 to $25 million more dollars for being in the SEC. Okay, he ain't go.
I understand the money part of this, but there's not really that significant of a gap between what they'd be making between the SEC and the Big Ten. There's not that much of a. They're not that far. Actually, if anything, the Big Ten would be making more.
The Big Ten makes about $2 million.
Unless they can promise them something ridiculous, I'd be willing to bet something random like that could influence the decision, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Let me just say this. If North Carolina makes decisions off of lacrosse, they need to all fire themselves.
Oh, stop it.
You can't make a decision over lacrosse when football is going to generate you $20 more million a year. You can't.
Well, but if there's more money or the same amount of money in the Big Ten, you just go, okay, why don't I just pick the conference that's going to be maybe a little easier to win in basketball, and then we can also support the other athletic programs that are important to us. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.